Welcome to the video tutorial on how to use the Turbo Tourney 2005 Internet Add-on. The Internet Add-on is basically an additional feature that you can purchase that will help you put your tournament pool on the web on a specific site on the mysideline.com website, as well as it provides some special kind of integrated email features that you can use the turbotourney.com mail option to send email to your players. So the first thing we need to do to start using the Internet Add-on is to go ahead and purchase it. If you have already purchased the software, you can add the Internet Add-on to the Turbo Tourney 2005 software, or if you haven't purchased either, you can purchase them both at one time when you go through the order system. So just to kind of give you an idea, to go ahead and order the add-on, you just select the order option from the menu. And if you have not purchased the product yet, in other words, you have to have Turbo Tourney 2005 in order to use the add-on. It's not just something you can buy on its own. So if you haven't purchased it, when you select the software that you want, there's an option on the order form to go ahead and add the Internet Add-on. Or if you've already purchased the software and you just want to add the add-on to it, you can select the add-on option, and you can go ahead and order that just kind of by itself, as long as you already have the product. So that's how you would go through and order the software. And the one thing that's new for this year now is after you have purchased it and you're logged into your account, you can actually see, well, the order history has been there, but you can see what you ordered for the last few years. But you can also see the add-on manager as an option here. And this is going to show you all of your Internet add-on pools that are available, as well as a link to the site and whether or not you have ordered that pool. So, for example, in my case, I've ordered the add-on for Turbo Tourney 2005, which has given me basically the ability to run a pool for the men's college basketball tournament and the women's college basketball tournament. But there's also some other options. If I were to order the Turbo Tourney Pro Internet Add-on, I have all these other pools that I can use the add-on feature for. And there's a link here that will take you right to that website. So if I want to look at my men's tournament Internet Add-on website, it's basically telling me that no page has been posted yet because I have not done that yet. So you can come here to see kind of where you're at with your pool, and it will also tell you whether or not you've put any pages on there from this page as well. So it's a good place to come if you can't remember what's the URL to your website. This will tell you that right here, and you can just click on it to go right to that website. So now we've kind of seen how you go through and set it up as far as ordering it. We're now going to take you through the steps that you would use to set up your pool to use the Internet Add-on feature. So the first thing we're going to do, as you would do with any pool, is to go through and set up your tournament options. This is detailed in an earlier tutorial, so if you haven't viewed that yet, you might want to go back and take a look at that. We're not going to cover all the details on how to set up your options, but if you go back and view that tutorial, you'll find out the information that we're doing here. All I'm really going to do here is really just set up a different tournament name, just so I kind of know what I'm working with. So we're going to call this the 2005 mysideline.com pool, and it's a men's tournament pool. So the first thing we need to do is to tell Turbo Tourney that we have purchased the Internet Add-on, and to do that we just select the web menu and the Internet Add-on, and here's where we enter in the account information of our account on the turbotourney.com website. So if I go back to the website, it's basically what I use to log in to this site when I placed my order. And in my case, I use the email address. And once you enter your login information here, you can actually verify your account status and make sure that the website recognizes that you have ordered the add-on, and if it's active, it also tells you what your URL here is, just for your purposes so you can see it. So it lets you know that you've entered in the right account name and the right password, and you've got the Internet Add-on basically set up and ready to go. And once you do that, that information will stay there for any other pool that you create. So it's kind of just a way to set up your computer so that Turbo Tourney recognizes that you do have the add-on. So now that we have the Internet Add-on purchased and we've configured the account information, we can now go ahead and start configuring our pool to use the Internet Add-on. And to do that, we start with the FTP Manager. So So I just select the Tools menu, the FTP Manager, and this is where I can tell the program that I want to go ahead and host my pool on mysideline.com. And now there's some settings here that I can't configure, like for example my account information. It's pulling that from the Internet add-on screen that I just entered that information into. And if I want to, I can click on the add-on button that will take me back to that screen if I need to change something or if I want to re-verify my status. But I've already done that, so I'm okay with my add-on being set up. And so let's just kind of go through these settings here. The prompt setting basically tells you anytime that you build your website or create your entry page, it's going to either not upload to your website if you select the Never Use FTP option. If you use the Always prompt, it's going to ask you every time you create it, do you want to go ahead and update your site? Or if you just want to go ahead and every time you do that, always FTP it to your website. So I like to use the Always prompt because sometimes I'm just kind of messing with some settings and I want to just look at my website locally on my computer before I upload to my mysideline.com site. So I would recommend leaving it at Always prompt, but you can go ahead and set it to any of those options that you want. Then they launch after uploading. After the program has gone ahead and uploaded your web pages to your website, that will basically load your browser and load up your website automatically after you do that. And then your URL, again, here is the website address that your pool is going to be posted to. Upload images. You can set it up to just upload the images the first time, because once they're on your website you don't need to continually keep uploading them because they don't change. But if for some reason you need to go back and upload them, you can change them to either upload every time or you can have them prompt you to upload them. It applies to, relates to what kind of files are used to upload to your website. By default, we will load the website files, which are the files that are loaded when you do the Build Website option, which I'll show you in a minute. And the Deploy Via Web files are basically your entry page files that you would use to have your players enter their picks and to pre-register. If you want the web report files, you can also include those, and those would be if you run individual reports. But generally I would suggest that we just always use the Build Website and not worry about running individual reports, because if you run them individually you lose that ability to keep your reports kind of all synced up together as one package. So I would just leave these settings as they are, but you can certainly do individual files if you want. And the transfer mode just determines how the files are uploaded to the website, and you can go ahead and just leave that as the default. That seems to work pretty well. So now I've configured my FTP Manager and say OK. So the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and build my website just to kind of see what it looks like right now. So to do that, we just select the Tools menu again and then Build Website. And here I have some more options now on how I want my website to look. The home page will really determines what the file name will be of my home page. Generally you can just leave it at default, but if you prefer to have a different file name used, you can certainly use one of those other three options. You can then tell it what you want to be displayed on the link to your home page of your website. Again, you can probably just leave that as a default, but you can change it. The page usage determines how much space on your browser does your home page take up, whether it takes up the whole screen or if you only want to take up part of the screen. The Include menu determines whether or not there's a menu bar that shows up on your website that links to other parts of your website and whether you want that included. The link setting and hover setting are how your links will look on your website, and you can change the different colors and different fonts if you want to do that. You can also choose to have a timestamp show on each of your web pages so your players can see kind of when was the last time the website was updated. The uppercase option determines whether or not you're on the menu that the menu text is shown in uppercase. It just looks a little bit nicer if it's all in uppercase, but you can turn that off. And then finally there's an option here of whether or not you want to include your entry page as part of your website. So what that'll mean is on your website there will be a link for your players to go to enter their picks or to pre-register. And if you select that option, it'll turn it on. If I select it right now, it's going to tell me that I cannot do it because I haven't created my entry page yet. And it's telling me to go ahead and use the Deploy Via Web to create the page. So for right now, I can't use that option, but we'll show you that in a second when I go through and build my entry page. And then you have some options here on what you want to include on your home page, the tournament news or the tournament prizes. You can control what things show up on your website. So those are just some of the settings. The custom menus is also another place you can go to add additional special links on your website. So if you want to have, like, say, a link to a message board, you can add that here. If you want to have a link to maybe your personal homepage or to maybe a sports website, you can certainly add additional links to those sites from here. We're going to go ahead and leave that blank for now. And then your choices here are build website and FTP files only. Generally, I would recommend that you always use the build website. The build website will go ahead and basically recreate all the website files to reflect what your pool looks like at this time. The FTP files only will not regenerate the web files. It'll just basically re-upload what's already on your computer to the mysideline.com website. So I would only use that option if maybe the FTP process failed, or for some reason you just want to re-upload the web pages, but it won't recreate, so it could be out of sync with what your pool has. So generally, I just would always recommend building the website. So let's go ahead and do the build website at this time, and it's going to go through and create the files for me. And if you remember earlier in the FTP Manager, I had set it up to always prompt me if I want to upload, and that's what it's doing right now. It's saying that my website has been created, and it's been created just on my computer locally here, and it's asking if I want to upload it to the mysideline.com website. And for right now, I'm going to say no, because I just want to kind of take a look at it before I actually post it to my site. So right now, it loads up the website into my browser, and as you can see, it's just on my computer locally on my hard drive, and I can view it, and I can do pretty much anything I could do on the website. But it gives me the ability just to look at it before I post it. So we have a few things on the website, but there's still a few more things that I want to add to it. So if we go back to Turbo Tourney now, I want to go ahead and I want to set up some of my rules, and you can go ahead and just type in, whatever your rules are. And you can fill in whatever kind of text you want, or you can also point your rules to a text file on your computer. If you have a file that you have that contains your rules, you can set those up there. And really, you can do the same thing for the tournament prizes. You can put your prize information here. Works just like the rules. And then you also have a spot for tournament news, where you might want to put any kind of special notes about what's going on with your tournament pool. So I've set up my tournament rules, tournament news, and tournament prizes. And now if I go back and I build the website again, now those things will show up on my web page. So it uses what you have created in your pool to know what to put on your website. So we can go look at my rules, and it shows what I just typed into that screen. Now I can also control what information shows up on my website in terms of what kind of pages. If you select the reports menu and then report setup, and you select the report package, the website is basically a report package, kind of all bundled up together on your website. And here are all the different reports you can include on your website. So you can choose what things show up on your mysideline.com website. So for example, let's say you don't want to keep posting the news on that site. You can shut off the news report. So here you can really just choose what things you want to include on your website. So now I have my site kind of built, ready to go, and I want to go ahead and we'll kind of assume that right now it's before the pairings. And so right now, if we look at my pairings information, we'll see that I don't have any pairings entered yet. But what I can do is I can go ahead and let my players start to pre-register for my pool. And to do that, it's the same process as I would go through once the pairings are announced. And if you remember before, when I tried to include my entry page, it told me that I couldn't because it wasn't created yet. We're going to go through and create that right now. And to do that, you select the remote menu, deploy via web. And for the mysideline.com hosting option, I would always recommend just using the basic web deployment. That will put an entry page on your site and use the turbotourney.com website to process your entries. You can certainly use the hosting with other web deployment options, but basic works really well for the mysideline.com hosting option. So we'll just say next. And now it knows basically that I've already signed up for the hosting, and it's got my email address in there. And I have some options here now. I can email a copy of the pics to my players if I want. What that will do is when they submit their entry, it will send them an email at that time with a copy of their pics. Generally, I would recommend you not do that, because really until you have loaded the pics into the program and kind of validated the people that have entered and validated their entries, you don't want to give them the false feeling like you've received their entry. So there is another option within the program that will generate kind of confirmation emails to players with their pics, and I think that's a lot better way to inform your players of their entries, but you can certainly use the email option if you'd like. And in the receipt mode, all entries in one file or each entry by email. Again, I would strongly encourage you to use the all entries in one file method. It's just a lot easier to use and a lot less chance of having something lost in the internet traffic of the email. So I'm just going to say I probably would never change this to be each entry by email. Let's just use the all entries in one file. And so now I have some options here. On my page title, right now, since I don't have any pairings entered yet, and I want to have my players pre-register, I'm going to change this page title to say pre-register. And for registration, I'm not going to use a deadline, and we'll come back and talk about this when we actually do our entry page. But for now, we'll leave that as there's no deadline. The redirect options will allow me to choose, once the player has submitted their entry or has pre-registered, I can either on the confirmation page have a link either back to my mysideline.com website, or I can have them just automatically be returned back to that website. And maybe we'll turn this option on here the next time through, but we'll leave this as none for right now. And now you can choose what information I want to collect from the player. I've already, in my setup from an earlier tutorial, have gone through and I've identified which fields I want to collect. And so now I can also choose of those fields which ones I want to be included on the entry page. Generally, you're going to want to include all of them, but let's say, for example, you had a field for keeping track of whether or not your players have paid. You probably wouldn't want your players to be able to set that option, so you wouldn't want to include that in the entry page. And then you can also determine of those fields which ones are required. For my pool, I'm only going to require the email address. The phone number and fax number are optional. Then there's some options here that will allow your players to attach comments to their entry. Basically, when they submit it, they're prompted if they want to send you a message. They can type it in, and then when you load the entry, the message will pop up for you. It doesn't send you an email with the message; just when you load it, you'll be prompted to see what they had typed in. You then have an option to use a drop-down list for your player ID field. And since I don't have any players right now in my pool, I'm going to leave this option off. But when I come back later after I've had some people pre-register, I probably would turn this on so that they could then just choose their name from a list that's already been determined and just submit their picks that way. We'll come back and show you that some more in a little bit. And there's just some kind of some coloring options on how you want your input fields to look, and we'll go ahead and leave that default. Here we have some ability to enter in some comments that you want to display before they enter their picks, and some comments you want them to display after their picks. You can bring up some example comments if you want, and I'm just going to leave those as the default. But you can come in here and change these and put any kind of comments you want to show up on your entry page. And now, since I don't have any pairings, the program knows that, and it's telling me that I have the option to either allow players to pre-register or to just display a generic entry page. The generic entry page would basically just tell them, hey, the pairings aren't out yet, come back later once they're available to enter your picks. So it just really displays to them that it's not ready yet. But you also have a choice now in 2005 to let them pre-register. And I'm going to go ahead and use that option for my pool. And now I'm all done. All my settings are set up, and this is just kind of an overview summary of what I've filled out. And it's now ready to create the entry page. And you need to pay kind of special attention to this screen because it tells you kind of what's going to happen. First thing is it's going to create a tournament entry HTML file, and if I want to, I'm going to be prompted here if I want to upload it yet to my website. And then when I'm done, to collect the entries, I have to select the Load Web Pics from turbotourney.com, which is under the remote menu to import the entries. So it's just kind of giving me an idea of what I need to do to collect, in this case, my pre-registration information. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the default here. And then there's an option now on this screen whether or not I want to include the entry page in my report package. This is basically that same entry page option that we saw in the FTP Manager as far as whether or not you want to include that link from your website to this entry page. And I definitely want to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that option on. So it's created the entry page, and now it's asking me, do I want to upload it to my website? So I'm going to go ahead and say no right now. And if we go back now, once my entry page has been created, now I want to come back and I want to build my website again. And now, as you can see, the entry page is now checked. So when I rebuild my site this time, I'm going to have a link now to that entry page, or what is right now a pre-registration page. And again, it's still just on my local computer. And I can bring up that entry page. And here's the fields that I asked to collect. So right now I think my site looks good. I think I like how it looks. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back. I'm going to build my website again. This time I'm going to say, yep, go ahead and upload it to the mysideline.com website. So I just go ahead now and I tell it, yes, go ahead and upload it. So it's now uploading all of my web pages to my pool site on the mysideline.com website. And now, since I'm going through my first time, it's going to upload my images to the website. And then it's going to bring up my website in my browser. So it looks just like it did on my local computer, except now I'm actually on the internet on mysideline.com. There's the URL to my site, and all my information is here. The other thing I can do now is if I go back to the turbotourney.com website, and if I log into my account, and I look at the Internet Add-on Manager screen, it now knows that that site is active and it's live because I now have some pages there, and there's a link to go right to that website. So it's kind of a nice way just to be able to know where all your stuff is. So my website is there. The piece that I don't have yet is the ability to enter pics or to pre-register. So let's go ahead and go through that process now. To do that, you select the remote menu, Deploy via Web, and that takes us through the Deploy via Web wizard. The first screen here is just kind of the introduction and asks you how you want to use the web deployment. And for the Internet add-on, I would recommend you always use the basic option. You can certainly use the one of the other two types, but for the Internet add-on, the basic works the best, and it's really the best option. So we'll go ahead and leave that as basic. And then because I'm using the Internet add-on, it knows what my email address is, and that's kind of on there by default. I also have a choice now here to email my players a copy of their pics. Generally, I would recommend you do not turn that on. It kind of gives them a false sense that you've received their entry, but really, in fact, until you download the entries and load them into your pool, you don't technically have them. So I generally would wait and then use the confirmation email feature within Turbo Tourney to send out an email to all my players. The other thing I can do with that is I can attach a PDF of their pics to that email message, so it gives them a lot better ability to look at their pics. They can print them off a lot better. So I would generally just say to not email them a copy until you have it downloaded. Then the receipt mode, you can choose between all entries in one file and each entry by email. I would definitely always recommend the all entries in one file. It's a lot easier option to work with, and it reduces any chance or eliminates any chance of losing entries out there on the internet through email. So I would recommend all entries in one file and really never use anything else. So we'll select next, and now I'm on my entry options page, and since the first time through here I don't have any pairings, but I want people to pre-register, I'm going to call this link pre-register instead of enter the pairings. And then I have an option of specifying a deadline of when either like maybe when pre-registration has to be done by or when the entries have to be made by. But for right now, for pre-registration, there is no deadline, so I'll go ahead and leave that as no deadline. And then I have some options for redirects. I can either have no redirects, so that once the person submits their picks, they're taken to the confirmation page and then that's it. Or I can choose to include a link, maybe a link back to my mysideline.com website, or just have them automatically come back to the website. And I'll show you those options here in just a second. For now, we're going to leave it as none. And now I can decide what information I want to collect from the player on my entry page or my pre-registration page. We've already configured these options earlier in our player setup, so you would generally want to include all of them. And then you can also decide which of those are required that the player must enter to submit their picks. And for me, I'm only going to make the email address be required. Now there may be a time where if you're collecting something like, has the player paid yet, you wouldn't want them to enter that on that entry page, so you wouldn't want to include it, and that's why you have these options to only collect from them what you really want them to be able to provide. Then you have some entry options here, whether or not you want to allow them to attach a comment to their entry. Basically this gives them a way to send you a quick message or a quick note, and you'll see that note when you actually import the entries into your pool. It doesn't send you an email message when they do it, it just actually lets you see it when you load the entry. There's also an option now for using a drop-down list for the names. Right now, since I don't have any players loaded, this really isn't useful for me to turn this on, but after I get a few players loaded from the pre-registration, I'll use that option, and I'll show you that later. But it basically allows them to just pick their name from a list they've already registered, so we're not going to ask for their information again, just let them pick their name and submit their entry. So we'll go ahead and say next, and I can also now put some comments on my entry page. These comments will display on the entry page itself up here. When I put in comments here, it's displayed on the confirmation page. And you can click on these samples to get some sample verbiage of something you might want to use, but you can certainly change those to any comments that you want to use. We'll select next. And now I'm here on the pre-registration page, so the program knows that I don't have any pairings entered yet, and it's giving me the option of either allowing people to pre-register or just displaying a generic entry page. The generic entry page would basically just say, sorry, the pairings aren't available yet, come back later, and there's nothing else they can do. But I want my players to be able to pre-register, and so I'm going to leave that option checked that we have now. So now that's all my settings, and this is just a confirmation of what I chose. Select next. And now on the Generate Components page, it's nice. It tells you what's going to happen and what you need to do to collect your entries. So for me to be able to collect my entries, I need to select the Load Web Picks from turbotourney.com, which is under the remote menu. And that will be where I go to retrieve the entries or to retrieve the pre-registration information from my players. And if you remember back on the FTP Manager, there was an option for the entry page to be included. I can also choose that option here. It's basically the same field, but we have the ability to set it on either screen. So for me, I want to include this on my website, so I'm going to check this option. And we'll say Finish. And the entry page has been created, and it's asking if I want to upload it. And right now I'm going to tell it no, because I want to go back and build my website again for it to take effect. So it creates the entry page locally on my computer, and now if I go back to the build website, as you can see now, the entry page option is now checked because that page has been created. And if I build my website again now this time and upload it, I'll now see that there's going to be a link to my, basically now it's my pre-registration page. So now it loads up my pool again on the mysideline.com website, and as you can see now I do have a link for the pre-registration, which will take the player right to the pre-registration screen. So once they're here now, they can actually go ahead and kind of pre-register for my pool. So they'd enter their name, and email address is the only one that's required. And they say register. And here's where they can actually attach a message to the administrator. So they can say whatever they want, and they've successfully registered. And as you can see here now, they're on the confirmation page, and there's like no link to go back to your home page. So now what I want to do is I want to go back through the deploy via web, and it's maintained all of my settings, but now I want to include a link back to my home page. And in case I can't remember what my home page is, if I go back to my website, this is basically the URL to my website, or I can also get it by going back to the FTP Manager, and it's right here in the report URL. So what I can do is I can highlight this and say copy, go back to the deploy via web, and now I'm going to include that link, and I'm going to do Control V to paste it into that field. And so there's my, again, there's my link to my website. This link is found in the FTP Manager. You can see it on the TurboTourney.com website if you select your add-on manager screen. So there's a lot of different ways you can get this URL. And then we'll select next, and we'll just go through, and we're going to rebuild our entry page, and we're going to re-upload it to our website. And now if I go back to my home page and I select the pre-registration option and have another player register, and we'll say no to that message now. And now there's a link back to my pool homepage after they register, so it basically takes them right back to this screen. So then the third option is to do the immediate redirect. So we'll go back through the deploy via web again, and this time I'm going to select the immediate redirect, create the web page, and we'll, at this point we're going to say we don't want to upload it, so we're going to go back through then again and do the build website. Build website, and we'll go ahead and upload the pages. So generally I would recommend every time you make any changes to your entry page, go back and build your website. It's always the best way to ensure that you're getting kind of the latest information on your site. So now if we select the pre-register and we fill in another name, and we say register. Now after the person is registered, they're taken right back to my home page. So this basically will bypass that confirmation page and take them back to my pool website. So you have kind of 3 different ways you can set up your hyperlink options when somebody registers. So now that I've got a few players that have gone ahead and registered, I'm going to go ahead and download those pre-registration information. So remember, it told me at the end of the deploy via web to retrieve them, I select the load web pics from TurboTourney.com. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And it's telling me here that before I can do that, I have to first get a password using the control panel. So it's going to take me to the TurboTourney.com control panel. And what this is it's ensuring that you are the person that has access to the pool entries. So the first thing I'm going to do is say I want to get my password, because at this point I have not gotten it yet. This is not the same password you use to log into the TurboTourney.com website. This is a password specifically for this pool that you're working with, so there'll be a different password for each pool that you're running. So we'll select Get Password, and it's telling me now, okay, it's been mailed to me at the tutorials@sightline.com. So now I would go to my email program and get my password. And so I've already gone out and I've retrieved my password from my email program. I'm going to put it in this field right here. And now what we can do is we can check our status. So it's validated that password's good. It tells me I've got 6 entries out there waiting for me. And I can go ahead and I can select to download them. And it's going to ask me where I want to store the entries file, and I can just go ahead and I can leave that as the default. So they say now it's been downloaded. Do I want to load them? and I'm going to say yes. This now takes me to the Load Web Pics page, where I can basically import those entries now. The first thing we do is we analyze the header on the file to make sure it's valid. So it's matching up at this point what's in my pool locally versus what it collected on the website, just to make sure that everything matches. And it's telling me I've got 6 players, and I can start the import. And now I'm seeing the comments that my players had submitted when they made their pre-registration. And now it's telling me, okay, I've found a player that's already on file, so their name matches someone that's already in the program. And I can choose here now what I want to do. Do I want to skip this player, or do I want to create a second player? And since I've got 2 John Does, I can either, if I think this is a different person, I can put in a second entry for them by doing something like that and doing try again. Or I can just say, this guy probably just submitted 2 entries, I'm just going to go ahead and skip it. So you have some different ways you can handle what happens if you find a person has submitted multiple entries under the same name. We're going to go ahead and skip the second John Doe. So it's telling me now the summary, I had 6 players, 5 were good, and 1 of them was skipped. We close it. And now we see these players are now in my pool. And if I look at their player information, I can see that I've got their name and their email address now. So I have now been able to let these people pre-register for my pool, and if I want, I can send them an email now. So that's kind of a quick way to get people pre-registered. So now that I have them pre-registered, we're going to basically try to simulate now what happens once I get the pairings. And if you remember in an earlier tutorial, we talked about how you can go back and load prior year pairings just to kind of do some testing. I'm going to do that right now just to be able to get some pairings information from last year's tournament. So we'll change my current year to 2004. I'm going to go to the pairings screen and download from the web. And this was all covered in that earlier tutorial. So now I actually have the pairings loaded. So if you imagine this would be like Sunday night now, I've got some players pre-registered and now the pairings come out. And now I've got them loaded. I'm going to go back through the deploy via web again. And all my settings now still pertain. But now maybe we want to set a deadline. So maybe we want to say that the deadline is going to be, say, March 17th at 9 o'clock a.m. And all the information is still going to be the same, but now that I've got some players pre-registered, I'm going to go ahead and use a drop-down list for their names. So instead of them having to retype their name again, maybe they spell it wrong or get it wrong, we'll let them pick it from a drop-down. I have an option now, if I don't want to let anyone who did not pre-register get in the pool, I can say nobody else can enter except these 5 people. But for my pool, I'm going to go ahead and let people enter even though they maybe didn't pre-register. And then if people who have pre-registered, if I want them to be able to resubmit their information again, like their email address, I'd want to turn this option on. But since I've already got them registered and I have their information, I really don't want to require them to have to provide it again, so I'm going to leave that option unchecked. Everything else stays the same, and now you can see that we no longer have that option of pre-registration because we do have pairings. And now I have my options related to my entry page, and you can choose between whether or not they pick their entries from drop down or pick them from point and click, and that's just your preference on how you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as point and click, but you can experiment. Again, we're at the confirm settings, just kind of verifying what we've selected, and generate the entry page. I'm going to go back now again and build my website. And here's just giving me kind of a warning that's saying I've included the player scenarios in my pool, but that support isn't available yet, so it's just letting me know that it's not going to be listed on my website. And I'm now being told that the bracket pages are some of the sizing, the font sizes I have by default aren't going to make it fit on one page, and it's going to ask if I want to automatically resize it. And generally I'd say go ahead and say yes to this. So now it's created my site again, and it's asking if I'd like to upload them. I'm going to say yes. And as you can see now, I've got a lot more pages involved in my website because I've got some players here that I didn't have before. So there's a lot more reports now that are applicable because I have some players listed. So now I'm back on the home page again. Oh, and I did not change my title from pre-register to something else. So if we want to go back through our website, our build website again, and we want to change this to enter your picks. Did not do that before. Everything else is going to stay the same. We'll go back and build the website again. And we'll upload the pages again to the website. Okay, so I kind of fast forwarded through here. Now the pages are uploaded, and I've got my new label now for entering my picks. And if I select that, I now have my pick entry page. So this has basically replaced the pre-registration now, and the players can fill out their picks. The one thing you might have noticed now is that now that I have players, I actually have them showing up in the listing here, and they actually have a link to their picks. And what you may want to do is, since we really we haven't started the tournament yet, and some of these reports aren't really valid until we get everyone's entries, you might want to think about shutting those off. If you remember, we talked about going back into the report setup and on the report package. And so right now, since I'm just collecting entries, the current standings, projected standings, basically any of the standings reports really don't apply yet. And maybe I don't want to show yet who's pre-registered for the pool, so I can shut off some of my player listings and player picks. No games have been played yet, so I wouldn't need to show the tournament results. So I can really kind of come in here now and I can say, these things really don't apply yet. So let's just go ahead and turn them off. And we go back and build our website again. And so now if I look at some of my reports, as you can see, it's a lot more limited now on what's available. People can still enter their picks, but there's no standings reports yet. And if we look here on the home page, it's still showing this top players. And so if I want to turn that off, I can come back into the build website, uncheck my top players from my home page content, and we'll rebuild the website again. So there's a lot of different ways you can customize this website to have the look and feel that you want, and also have the content that you want. By default, it just really kind of includes everything, but you can certainly choose what to include and what not to include. So now I've gotten rid of that top players option. So then, now that I've got my entry page ready to go, the next thing I want to do is basically reset my entry file that I have out there to make sure that I don't start mixing my pre-registrations with the actual entries. And so to do that, I want to go back to the remote menu, into the control panel, and I check my status. I'm going to reset my entry file because I don't want the pre-registered information to get mixed up with the entries. So that basically reset my entry file so that I have no more entries now. Pre-registration is over. It's time to collect the real entries. And so now when I start to download again, I'm just going to get the actual entries that people submit. So what we can do now is we can kind of come in here and we can simulate a player making their picks. And I'm going to use, say, that player which has already submitted their picks. And let's go through and fill out the bracket just by clicking on the team that they think is going to win. And I'll fast forward through this for you. So now I've filled out my bracket, and I'll put in my estimated for total points in the final game. Submit my picks. And now I'm back on my home page. So I've had one player now submit their entry. So if I go back into the program, so now to load my entries now, select the remote menu again, load web pics from turbotourney.com, and I can say download entries, and it's letting me know they're going to be checked against that deadline, which is fine. And so there's my one entry, and I can go ahead and load the entry. And now it's telling me that I have a player on file already, which I would expect because this person pre-registered. And so what I want to do is go ahead and I want to just update that person's information with what they just submitted. And I can now change here, if I don't want to keep getting this message, I can say, if I've already found them, go ahead and just always update them and use the pics from this entry. And we'll say update. And now the entries have been imported, and it's asked me if I want to reset the entry file. If I select yes to this, then the entries will not be included the next time I download. If I select no, then they will be there. So basically what this means is, if you're just out here kind of throughout the 4 or 5 days of people submitting entries, just kind of seeing what people are submitting, but you're not actually saving this to your pool file, you'd want to say no, because you want to get them next time. But if you're just out here downloading the entries and kind of getting them as you go, as the days go by, you'll want to say yes, so that they don't keep being downloaded. So in my case, I'm going to say yes, I want it to be reset. So now I've got pics for this player. So that's really just the process you'd go through for people to go ahead. You've got your bracket page now loaded on your website. People can make their pics, and you can download them real easily just by using that load web pics from turbotourney.com menu. And then I also mentioned that you have the ability to send that confirmation email. The first thing you need to do to set up that email for the Internet add-on is to select the View menu and Preferences, and we're going to select the Mail tab. And the first thing we need to do is set our mail type. And if you're using the Internet add-on, you have this option of turbotourney.com mail, which is what I would recommend. It's integrated with the program, so you don't have to really worry about any of your settings. But if you do have a MAPI compliant email program, or if you use an SMTP mail service, you can certainly use those options as well. For my case, I am an Internet add-on user. I'm going to go ahead and use the turbotourney.com mail option. And I'm going to change my attachment type to be PDF. I don't think it's a good idea to send players directly HTML attachments, only because they can get kind of messed up with the graphics and if there's multiple pages. So generally I would recommend always attaching a PDF. And that's really all I need to set up for my mail option, and we'll say OK. And now if I want to send a confirmation email, I just select the remote menu, confirmation email message. And what that does is it preloads the to line with only players that I've received entries from. And so I can go ahead and I can say that this is from me, and my name, and I can send them a message here saying, thanks, I've received your entry. And so I can basically send an email message saying to this person, yes, I do have your entry, and thanks for entering the pool. And I can select send to go ahead and send that message. The other thing I could do is I could select the reports menu, player pics, and I can choose which players I want to include. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say all players, and I'm going to select the email option, and then I'm going to be asked, who do I want to mail the pics to? Do I want to mail pics to all players? Which I don't. I want to mail players just their pics, and only players who have submitted entries. So what I'm basically saying here now is I'm going to send out the player pics report, but each player is only going to get a copy of their pics, but I'm only going to send a message to those who I've actually received entries from. And I can have the ability to type in my message here. Again, thanks for your entry. So what this will do then is going to send that message. I need to set up my email address. So I guess I missed this step here where I go to the tournament options and I put in my contact name and my email address. So then now if I go through that process again, send the email, and attach in the report file. So there I just emailed each player that sent the pick a copy of their picks. So that's kind of a nice way you can let people know that you've received it and also give them a copy of their entry. You can also use the reminder email. That will send an email message to just those players who have not yet entered their picks. So there's a couple different ways you can use this email option to keep your players kind of up to date. So that is just kind of a quick overview of how to use the Internet add-on. There's a lot of features, and it's you know, you can play around with it and get used to how you want to have things set up in terms of getting the players' picks. And now that I've gotten one entry, and let's assume that now it's like the tournament has started. And if you remember, we had turned off some of these reports, and now I might want to come back in here into the setup now and change it and start re-including these reports again into my website, so that next time I build it, it'll include that information. So that's just a quick overview of the Internet add-on and how to use it with Turbo Tourney 2005.